The converted man here. I fooled you. Haha, you thought you were lagging. Alright. Somebody said not to use AI art, so gonna keep doing that. Alright, are you ready? Are you set? Alright, here's the stupid. Let's bring it on. Here it is. Hope you're ready for it.
But here's the thing that got me thinking. Millions, if not billions of people throughout time and around the world have claimed to have an experience with God. That's not just a few random breakdowns. That's actually data, right?
Sort of. The word God doesn't just mean your God. It means many different types of gods of many different types of religions. Wikipedia has at least 42 different deities. Well, actually, each one is more than 42, but that's how many times that word showed up. Psychology Today said there's at least 18,000 different gods. And there's an Egyptologist and his friend that said there's lots and lots of Egyptian deities. So I could go on and on and on. But not every god is your god. And that's the problem. You're ignoring this. So, are these humans experiencing unique gods, the same God, or feelings that they have labeled God? There's this interesting device called the God helmet, and Science Alert covers something even more interesting about this God helmet. See, they did this experiment where they put this thing on people, and they're like, hey, you're going to experience God, but
it's a fake.
That's right, the goddamn God helmet that they did in that experiment wasn't even the actual God helmet. They just told people that it was. And that was enough for people to experience God, which means we've artificially induced the feeling of God in people. So, what is going on? We've got people that experience God 1, God 2, and then a guy hooked up to the machine that experiences God 3, and also the machine could not actually even be a machine. That means if you're in the right situation where you think that you're going to experience God, the placebo effect will make you experience God, even though it's not actually God. Or if it is God, there's no way to tell the difference. There's no test to determine that what you're feeling is God. But there are feelings, and that is real. And we know feelings exist, and we can measure them. And if we can induce God in people, then maybe God is just a feeling that you've labeled God. In other words, God is something that the brain feels, and God is not something outside of the brain, or God is real and produces feelings of God that are also real, but we can use a real machine or a fake machine and trick people into thinking that they feel the real God feeling. Also, other people that believe in different gods can experience God even though it's not your God, which means that God is allowing them to experience itself even though they believe in the wrong God, which God is going to punish them for anyways because they didn't believe in the right God in the right way. So that makes a lot of sense, right?
Now, does that prove God exists to you? Probably not. But it's convincing for those who go through it. And if even one of those encounters is the real deal, well, that changes everything.
How would you know? What test would you have to confirm that it's the real deal? What if it is a God that is specific for that one person, no one else? It does exist, but it made everything just for that one person. Yeah. And it's that person's God. Everyone else is doomed. Everything was about that one person. What if that's true? Could be. Sure, why not? See, if we're going to go to the if category, then all bets are off. Let's stick to what we can confirm, what we can test, what we can probe, and not just wild speculation.
Picture this. You walk into the woods, you look around for maybe a minute. You don't see any deer, so you turn around and you walk back out and say, well, I guess deer don't exist. That would be ridiculous, right? But that's honestly what atheism feels like to me.
This is an appeal to emotion. What it feels like to you is wholly irrelevant. What you're alluding to would be the black swan fallacy. And we saw nothing but white swans and conclude that there are no black swans, only to discover that, yes, there are indeed black swans. But when it comes to God, there is no evidence of this thing God, just bad arguments. And if you want to present evidence, and by evidence I mean empirical evidence and or a repeatable test, those things fall under the category of science. And before you say, well, God isn't something you can study with science, you don't know that. You just assert it. So you would need to demonstrate that God is that thing, not by a definitional standard, which would be a logical fallacy, but by some methodology that demonstrates what God is, and that would mean proving God. When it comes to apologetics, all they seem to have are arguments, and these arguments contain fallacies, like yours right now.
We got a massive universe with billions of galaxies, dimensions we can't even wrap our heads around, and we've explored maybe 0.0001% of it. And then we're like, yep, definitely no God here. Now I know what you're thinking. Atheism isn't claiming that God doesn't exist, it's just the lack of belief in a God. Okay, but is it though?
Yes, it is. Whether you like it or not, accept it or not, that's the reality. There are multiple definitions of atheism. Well, two. There is the classical, philosophical, academic position that I think very few people hold to, which is there is no God. This is also known as hard atheism, or strong atheism, or Gnostic atheism. Then there is the soft atheism, the weak atheism, or the agnostic atheism, which is, I don't know if there is a God, I don't believe in God. And most people say that they just don't believe in God. And that's it. And yeah, you're right, we haven't studied that much of our universe. But that doesn't mean that God is out there. We haven't yet found God, so there's not a reason to believe that it is unless we find it.
Because according to Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, atheism actually means the proposition that God does not exist.
Oh, this is 3 fallacies for the price of 1. So you have an appeal to authority. Look at this authority figure of this Stanford Encyclopedia. Behold, this is the thing that must be right because it is an authority source. Secondly, it's an appeal to definition. And then third, it's actually cherry picking. You had it on the screen and you didn't read the whole thing.
Why do you lack that belief?
I haven't seen any evidence at all, not even a little.
Well, I haven't seen enough evidence. Really? Would you say the same thing about aliens? Would you say you don't believe in aliens because NASA hasn't personally called you?
NASA doesn't have my phone number, and they wouldn't need to call me for me to think that aliens were real. I'm not sure that they would be the ones to make that announcement. But what the bleep kind of weird red herring is this? Are you suggesting that I should believe in aliens because NASA hasn't called me personally yet? What the bleep are you saying?
Or do you think, well, there's billions of planets out there, so aliens probably do exist?
I don't hold any beliefs about aliens at all. But it doesn't matter even if I do. This is a red herring. It has nothing to do with the God belief or lack thereof.
What about abiogenesis? You know, life coming from non-life? Do you believe in that?
So, your second red herring. And I'm trying not to get distracted by it, but this is also an attempt at a tu que, you as well. Oh, look at you, you hypocrite, you. You have a belief in abiogenesis without any evidence, because that's the implication, right? Well, I believe in God without any evidence. Well, why can't we just both believe in God without any evidence? Even if it was true, it isn't, but even if it was true that any given person believed in anything, let's just say Bigfoot, that doesn't mean that their non-belief of God can be argued for by telling them that they have this other belief in something that is also unjustified, therefore they should believe in God, because that's not a sound, reasoned approach to an argumentation. It is using fallacious logic. Hey, you already believe in nonsense. Why can't you believe in this nonsense as well?
Because if you do, show me the lab where they actually made that happen. Oh yeah, that's right. There isn't one. But it's still the best explanation we got to go with considering the data, right?
Well, you say that as if it's a bad thing. We do have data to reasonably conclude that life is a chemical process, and the building blocks of life are chemicals, so obviously those chemicals came together at some point to make life has come about, and it took a while to do that, and the exact specifics of that are still unknown, and they're working on it, and at one point someday they might make it happen in the lab. Then what are you going to say? Are you going to just move the goalpost again? Are you going to say, well, but it sure took them a long time? Are you going to say, well, but it took intelligence to make life because they're intelligent? Or are you going to say, well, that doesn't count? Because typically with people that are creationist minded, they do not care about the experiments that have been done proving evolution. They've given up on trying to deny evolution, and they've now moved to denying abiogenesis because there's holes in there that they think that God can fit into.
So here's what I've noticed. Every argument for atheism is actually just an argument against a specific type of God. But I haven't seen any actual arguments for atheism.
Okay, I guess I'll give you one. No, I'll give you two. No, three. Premise one, if there's no evidence of God, then you should be an atheist. Premise two, there is no evidence of God. Conclusion, you should be an atheist. Secondly, premise one, if what God is not agreed upon, then we must be skeptical about God. Premise two, what God is not agreed upon. Conclusion, we must be skeptical about God. This third one is not mine at all, it's actually ChatGPT's. And I'll just let you go ahead and read that because somebody told me not to use AI stuff, and actually they didn't tell me not to do that, they just complained kind of about me using a thing. They're like, it turned them off when they saw it as a thumbnail, and that's all they complained about, but I'm exaggerating it for comedic effect. And now it's like an inside joke that only they will know about and be like, oh, yeah, decompress, doing the thing. Anyways, you'll have to mute this part to read the screen. And I'm pretty sure you're done reading the screen right about now. So I'm going to continue to play your video and count how many fallacies you have.
It's just the assumption that for some reason atheism is the default position. But you're not the neutral baseline here. You got your own belief system with its own assumptions. And if your worldview doesn't offer good arguments and mine does, maybe that's worth exploring.
You think your worldview has good arguments? Great. Love to hear one. Please make sure it's sound. Not just valid, but sound. So I'm waiting. As far as my worldview, just to make sure that we're on the same page, atheism isn't a worldview. So whatever my worldview is, it contains atheism, but it is not atheism because atheism isn't a thing like that. Just to make sure that you understand that. Right?
So, why is there something rather than nothing?
Because nothing is paradoxical in nature, and paradox can't exist, therefore nothing can't exist. That's one possibility. Another is that nothing is a concept that humans made up and does not actually exist in reality. It never has existed, nor will it ever actually exist. Nothing is so nothing that it is actually not even a thing, other than an idea. But then it is a thing, in that it's an idea at least. It's an idea that there isn't a thing there, but that isn't actually a thing that can be in reality. It's just an idea that we have that something could not be. And if there was nothing at all, then there wouldn't be anything at all to prevent anything from happening, thus inducing paradox, thus collapsing in on itself and making whatever the bleep that wanted to be made or could be made, because you can't apply rules when there are no rules, which there would have to be if you had a true nothing. Also, finally, not knowing the answer to something doesn't mean anything.
Nothing! Absolutely nothing!
Is reality made of things that could not have existed? Or is there something that must exist no matter what? That's the heart of the contingency argument.
Stupid! You're so stupid!
A contingent thing is something that doesn't exist by necessity, like your phone or you or the whole universe.
Yes, the argument from contingency. So some things are contingent, perhaps. Other things might not be contingent, perhaps. And then we extrapolate that to say that all things are either contingent or non-contingent, but we can imagine a universe where nothing was, sure, and then there's nothing there. But then that leads again to that whole nothing thing. Or we can imagine that everything comes from something, except there has to be something that everything came from, something that isn't contingent, because we don't like the idea of an infinite regress. Not because it's impossible or improbable or whatever, we just don't like it. So we just assert, base assertion, that infinity is impossible. No cyclic universes. No universes stacked all the way down. Even though that might be the actual reality, we're just going to pretend that that's not how it is. Then, we're going to insert the idea that this non-contingent thing that has to be is the only thing like that ever, that there's never been another one like that, that there's just one in the entire reality, making it the ultimate and special pleading of all time, and then we're going to claim that that's God. At no point do you actually prove or demonstrate that God is a non-contingent agent. You just define God as being that and hope that the people who don't understand logic nod their heads and agree. His explanation of the argument is actually even worse than the strong version of it. He's not even presenting a valid version of the argument. There's no premises here. What utter crap is that? We expect explanations always? That's not a conclusion! That's not even an argument! Just because you expect an explanation doesn't mean you get one or have one! This is beyond moronic! Also, it's just bad logic, so just to make that clear. It being moronic doesn't matter. It's bad logic is what does matter. But also it's moronic. I do want to just, pile on to it because I hate it. So there.
So not everything can be contingent, which means there must be something that's necessary. A foundation. You don't walk outside, see a dent in your car, and say, well, probably nothing did that. You assume a cause, you go looking.
Yes, that's a localized phenomenon, though. That's a phenomenon in the universe that we have, or on the planet that we have. That doesn't necessarily extend to all of the universe, and also it doesn't necessarily extend backwards in time. Now it might, but we don't know. And we don't know because of freaking Planck temperature, which is basically a firewall of, nope, you don't get to go past this point because we just don't know what the hell is happening at Planck temperature. It's too damn hot.
And maybe you say, okay, but what if there's just an infinite chain of explanations? Well, that doesn't solve it. An eternal forest still needs a reason for that forest to exist at all.
So God needs a reason to exist at all if God is an eternal force. Why does God exist rather than not exist? Couldn't these same questions be applied to God? Because God has to be, right? But why does God have to be? Couldn't there just be not a God? See, you're adding this thing in based on assumptions that you've made that are not warranted by the argument that you're making because it's full of fallacies and assumptions about the universe that you can't hope to know are true.
You need an explanation for the totality of contingent things. This whole chain of reality points back to something that doesn't depend on anything else. Something necessary that's absolutely independent. And the question is, could that be God?
We made it up.
Okay, I'm done with this guy for now. He has at least 7 logical fallacies, and that's more than enough to disregard his argument in full. In fact, he didn't even make a valid argument, so that's it out the window already. But we could have stopped when he did the straw man on atheism. We could have and probably should have stopped when he did the cherry picking of atheism. And I want to highlight this comment because it's so good. In this instance, we have somebody saying that no God is atheism and that I don't know is agnosticism, and hasn't bothered to look at Stanford's definition of agnosticism, because it says that most agnostics, according to it, say that you can't know if God is true or false. The updated version of agnostic is I don't know. That's the updated understanding that has become accepted in the wider zeitgeist these days. Just like most atheists have said the term atheist means to them, I don't believe in God, and has thus been updated, so too, you're using an updated version of that term, and you don't even know it. Anyways, because of that, I don't believe that he actually did read that paper. But you should, and it's included in the description below, as well as all relevant links to all the things that I mentioned and or are relevant to this particular video, because unlike apologists, I give citations. We did not have any empirical evidence, repeatable tests, or valid and sound argument in this guy's video, so therefore we must be skeptical of this guy's video's conclusions. You see, nothing is so nothing that it's not a thing, because if it was a thing, then it would be a thing, and then it wouldn't be nothing anymore. So the only way that it can be nothing is if it's actually not even a thing, which means that nothing is actually not a thing, because it can't be a thing, because if it was a thing, then it wouldn't be nothing, which means when you say nothing, you can't actually mean nothing, because nothing itself is a paradox, because you couldn't have nothing. Anyways, thanks for watching.